The road to establishing yourself as an expert for your brand's sake. Hi, I'm Danielle of Study All Night, and I'm going to be with you during this webinar to get you started or to get you headed in the right direction on getting yourself out there as an expert in the type of resources and the type of strategies and tips that you're sharing with your audience. So before we begin, here's a few things about myself. I am a secondary special education teacher from New Jersey. I've been a TPT seller since 2012. My blog is Study All Night. There are 2 Facebook groups that you can find me in that I'm really active: the Digital Classrooms with Study All Night and the Inspiration for Google Drive. So more about myself. I am married to a teacher and we have 2 sons. And you can find me attending TPT meetups to be with my TPT friends where we can network, exchange ideas, or just get a really good laugh. Where can you find me? Well, most importantly, you can find me on Teachers Pay Teachers. My blog, Pinterest, Facebook, Google+, I'm all over social media. You'll notice that I use the consistent handles for all ways you can reach me. I either use my first and last name or the name of my brand, which is Study All Night. I highly recommend this for yourself. If you don't do this, I would look into making those changes as soon as possible. Your audience is going to want to know how to find you, how to get in touch with you. And when they see the handle, they will immediately associate it with you and your brand. So let's get ready to start. Where should we start? What do you think? Let's start with your brand. What is a brand? Well, I'm pretty sure everybody knows what a brand is, but just in case, it's a type of product manufactured by a particular company under a particular name. Now, we live in a society that is highly driven by retail, by sales, so brands are really recognizable. When you see a name or a logo of a company, immediately in your head, you associate it with their products. So what is a digital brand? Is it different from a traditional brand? It is. The digital brand is a deliberate process of creating consistently positive, appealing images and messages. The digital instant downloads of a digital brand, yes, it is different from a traditional brand. Digital products are successful when they solve a problem. And the importance of the packaging comes second. In retail, in a storefront, when you buy something, it comes in a package and you bring it home, and very annoyingly you have to get the scissors, you have to cut it open. Well, with a digital brand, with a digital product, there isn't that type of packaging. So where should you be when it comes to your digital brand? Where can people find you? What is associated mostly with your digital brand? In my opinion, it's your blog. I love my blog content. I love my blog. If you don't love your blog, then you need to address your relationship with your blog. What do I mean by this? My blogging road, the road to my blog has been a bumpy one. But I want to say for the last maybe year and a half, I'm finally settled and content with how it looks and the content. Your blog is the go-to place to support your resources that you are putting out for selling. So it should be consistent with the type of audience that you're driving to your resources. I also recommend guest blog posts on your blog. You want to build your content. Recently, in the spring, I explored guest blog posts for the first time. I have Kim from English Oh My, who wrote an awesome blog post on poetry. Believe it or not, and this just happens to be something really interesting for my first experience with a guest blog post, it happens to be the most successful blog post on my blog for 2017. The page views every day are just, it's mind-blowing how many people have been driven to this blog post. And I'm so excited about it. Kim and I have discussed possibly more blog posts in the future. Maybe myself going on her blog, but I would love to have her blog for me again. I recommend this for you, and it was just a really good experience. Where else do you go to develop your digital brand? There's Facebook, Twitter, and just recently, I'm trying to build my content in my YouTube channel. Pinterest is consistently a top refer every month to my Teachers Pay Teachers store. Your digital brand on Pinterest, it is really important that you focus on the audience that you're trying to drive to your resources. I'm really consistent on Pinterest every day, pinning blog content and my resources, and I'm also pinning content from others within my market. So typically, my viewer on Pinterest is repinning technology type of resources, technology content. So naturally, I'm looking for technology content to repin from others. And my digital brand is really important on Teachers Pay Teachers. You want to develop a storefront that all gets tied together with your cover images, your logo, your quote image. Everything should have the same feel. Everything should be consistent. I'm really proud that today I've been told, and I'm really flattered by this compliment, if someone sees one of my covers, they automatically know it's from me, based on me being consistent with the same look. Okay, so now we have talked about what a digital brand is. So now it's time to talk about your response. But let's start with your blog. Let's talk about your response on your blog. So what are the good reasons why you should build a digital brand with a blog? Your number one goal, you want the blog to support your business. Now, what do I mean by this? I believe entirely that your blog should be a branded blog. You're not going to post content about anything other than what's going on in your resources. Everything should support each other. I'm not talking about every line of a blog post being a sales pitch, but if you're going to present an idea or a problem and you have the solution, absolutely tie in your resources with your blog content. You plan on extending the site across the internet. So I often refer to a blog as your site. You want a page for it on Facebook. You want the Facebook fan page, the followers page. You're going to take your blog content, you're going to put it on your Facebook page. You also want a Pinterest board dedicated to your blog. At the bottom of this slide I showed you, I could actually show it again. An example from my own Pinterest account. I have a board, and there it is, that supports my blog. And on this Pinterest board, there are loads of pins that all go directly to my blog posts. When I do my repinning and I go to Tailwind, I often go to this board to repin the pins. If you don't have this, I highly recommend you start a Pinterest board dedicated to your blog today. More good reasons why you should build a digital brand with a blog. If you're going to establish yourself as an expert, you want to make yourself as the go-to resource, the go-to source for that topic. Whether you are going to blog about digital and tech, interactive notebooks, task cards, resources that are no prep or the Common Core, try to focus on an audience and write for them. They will come back to you. So here is an example. Okay, so let's start that again. So my blog, okay, so I have a product line in my TPT store for sketch notes. So sketch notes, most people know what they are. A lot of people don't. So I decided to write a blog post to support the product line. It tells you how to use them, strategies to use them, the philosophy behind it. And within the blog post, I took pictures of resources to support the Sketchnotes blog post. So I went into my own resources, I took pictures of them in action, and I put them in the blog post. And you want to make sure all your images click through to those resources. Because again, you're presenting an idea, maybe a problem, and you have the solution, which is the resource. Now, the solution to the problem can also be another blog post. So you would click through to that. So your blog and brand go together like, well, no, not peas and carrots. I'm going to say your personality. Your name, tagline, color scheme, the design, which includes your logo, should all go together. You should also go with the promise you make to your readers about what they're going to find on your site. The way you represent yourself and your blog and other spaces online like Facebook and Twitter. Also, one of the best goals you can make is make your blog different from the 70 zillion other blogs on the internet. What do I mean by this? Well, I'll give you an example. If I'm going to talk about creating digital notebooks, what can my blog bring to the table for someone for digital notebooks? Or starting Google Classroom. That's a really good example also. There are tons of blog posts on starting in Google Classroom. Okay, so you see a zillion pins on that. But what kind of content can you develop for the user that's using Google Classroom? And what content should a branded blog have? The definition of a branded blog post. All content published on an influential blog. The links are pointed to a particular product, a category, or a homepage. Illustrated with images or any other piece of content. Images are awesome, especially images that show resources in action, especially like during a particular process, you want to show different steps. You want to show the pictures that go with the steps. The content will be search engine friendly. We're not going to get into SEO really during this webinar, but if you're not familiar with SEO or what it means, you should look it up tonight or after this webinar. The unique content and original ideas. Unique content is highly searchable on Google. It is what search engines want. Duplicate content is not a good idea. You want to focus on your selected keywords. Structured headline, subtitles, and paragraphs. And typically a blog post should not be more than 300 to 500 words. The link creations on the exact keyword terms, meaning this. If you're not taking advantage of your permalink feature, you should be. Automatically, Blogger, WordPress, they generate a URL for you based on the blog post. Many times, most often, I will change that URL and take specific keywords from the blog post and put it in the URL. The URL is searchable, and I highly recommend that you pay attention to what is being generated. So take a look at that. So the branded blog post, what are the benefits of them? Who does it benefit? So you're going to create a need or a want. You're driving traffic quality. You're driving quality traffic to your site. You're helping start chatter, interest. You're going to see people going back to groups on Facebook or even in their own lunchrooms, and they're going to talk about different things they see online or on Pinterest, all directing back to your blog. You're supporting your customers and you're responding to their needs. So now we're going to talk about how to write a blog post for your brand. And I love the how-to branded blog post. It's going to do exactly what it describes. It's going to teach the reader how to do something by breaking down a series of steps. For teachers, this type of post performs well, for most, and with very good reason. One of the most successful branded blog posts I have on my blog goes back to 2014, but to date, it still gets a lot of page views because I've linked it with many of my resources on Teachers Pay Teachers. So if you're going to purchase a flipbook from me for literature, within the product description, you may see the link to this blog post, or you may see the link to this blog post in the product itself. The branded blog post supports an entire line of products in my store. It was really easy to make, and like I said, to date, it is one of the most successful on my blog. So it is a branded tutorial on how to assemble the flipbook. Believe it or not, I used to get a lot of questions on how to do this. To me, it was an easy thing to do because it was my own product. It was my own resource, my own strategy. But let's say you buy it. You get an entire PDF file with all these pages and lines to cut, and it's very overwhelming. You should always assume that the person that's purchasing it doesn't know how to use it. We hope, I know this, we hope and pray that our buyers, our users, they know how to use everything, but they don't. So I took several pictures on how to assemble the flipbook. And in PowerPoint, I created these little text boxes with the steps and easy to follow arrows. So a branded tutorial would be a great idea and a great thing to use on your own blog to support your resources. It is a step-by-step guide on how to use a product from your store. Like I said before, I highly recommend linking it in your product's descriptions, and you want to include it in your product's instructions. Then look at this. This is pretty cool. I took that branded blog post, that branded tutorial, and I created a video on it. This is a really great idea because today, especially today and going forward in the future, more and more people are going to video to learn how to do something. I cannot stress this enough. We're not talking about 30, 40, 50-minute videos. We're talking about short clips. Easily manageable, very easy to do. There are great resources out there to create short videos. You could do them right on your phone. I highly recommend this. For this particular video, though, I do have to tell you that I did have someone film me, and they did some fancy editing for me, but it's not entirely necessary, especially if you're going to share it with your audience. So to give you an example of what's going on here, it's me demonstrating how to assemble the flipbook. Now, this video is free on Teachers Pay Teachers. Again, I've linked it to all my resources that have to do with a literature flipbook. I've gotten some questions in regard to this. It's highly necessary, it's needed, and I recommend it. With the video download is a supporting document that is actually the blog post that I formatted into a PDF file. So what you just saw that's on my blog for the flip-tutorial, the tutorial on how to assemble the blog post, now if you watch the video, you can download it in your supporting documents. So now I would love to talk about how to do this, how to write a branded blog post. What can you teach your audience? What can you teach them? If you're watching this, most likely you have resources in your Teachers Pay Teachers store. There are many different types of resources. And prior to being a TPT seller, many of them I've never used in my own classroom. I'm going to give you an example, a word wall. It was a strategy I really wasn't familiar with before I was a TPT seller. I would love to have found a blog post, and there are many out there, on how to assemble the word wall, how to put the word wall up in my classroom, and what the philosophy of the word wall is. So here is a template for you to use on writing a branded blog post, and you'll find it in the supporting documents that go with this video. You want to identify your audience. Which buyer are you writing for? What teacher are you writing for? So for an example, if I was writing a blog post on the flipbook guide, the flipbook tutorial, I'm going to say it would be for secondary ELA teachers. Those are the flipbooks that primarily are in my store, so I'm going to say that's the audience for that tutorial. What is my key idea? What do I want the audience to know? Let's say introducing the year with a short story unit, which, by the way, is a flipbook. So now I'm going to brainstorm possible titles. Keeps the blog post focused. Secondary ELA teachers back to school with short stories. Okay, we're going to leave that for now. But of course, later on we could tweak it. So now we're going to create an outline. Now, I know this seems like, okay, I never write an outline for my blog post, but if you don't, you probably should. We're just talking like a couple bullet points, things that you want to achieve. Okay, so we got the setting, the scene, why should you? We have where can you find the short stories, because that is a question that I am asked often. Does the product come with the short stories? Does the product, where can I find the short stories? Then you want to give them always the strategy in using it. So like, well, how could you engage your students in a short story unit? You just don't want to tell your reader, hey, I think you should do a short story unit. You want to tell them why. How are you going to engage the students in the short story unit? And why is it a good idea to start the year with it? You can write the blog post applying the outline. It's also a cool tip here is take the bulleted points and make sure you have an image that goes with each of them. So if I'm recommending that you have an intro, a body, 3 steps, and a conclusion, maybe that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's 5 pictures, 6 pictures. So at least have that many pictures in the blog post. You want to link to products and additional resources. Your products and additional resources will definitely give you credibility. Linking to blog posts or pages on your site will increase page views. Okay, so let's say this blog post is about the short story unit and I'm promoting maybe using the flipbook in the blog post. So now you have a blog post you can link to that's how to assemble the flipbook. You want to send them to the resource on Teachers Pay Teachers. Then let's say I'm going to talk about differentiation in the resource. In the blog post. You want to, if you have a blog post that supports differentiation, you want to link to it. Linking content adds to your viewpoint and it will help you look trustworthy. So here are links that for my own blog post I may consider linking to, and your call to action images. If you're not using your tags in your blog post, I highly recommend it. The tags you'll find in WordPress and Blogger. So what is a call to action? We hear this term a lot. It's what you want the reader to do after they've read the blog post. Do you want them to sign up for something? Do you want them to buy something? Now, don't ever come out and be like, buy this. You need this. You could be like, if you're looking to do something like this, I recommend create a custom call to action image or button at the end of your blog post. Okay, so now we're going to go forward and talk about your response in your store. Where do you have responses in your store that are really important? Your Q&A. We all love the Q&A. Not. Well, okay. Let me rephrase that. The Q&A could make a heart sink. The Q&A could make you uneasy because we just don't know what the question is. It's important to respond to these in a timely manner. Now, in my own store, I get a ton of questions when it comes to digital resources. This used to take up a lot of time for me in answering them. So I'm going to show you how to save time and how to streamline your responses. Here's an example of a question that I get quite often. It actually is, I don't know what to buy. Can you help me? I don't know out of all the resources you have when it comes to digital resources, I don't know which one I could buy, which one I should buy. So always, here's a tip that I'm going to share with you. Always, and this was actually from my friend Jonathan from Creative for Learning, you always want to thank them for asking your question. You always want to make them feel, which is the right thing to do, make them feel valued, because it is valuable. They are valued. You always want to thank them for asking the question. I hope this helps. Thanks for asking. It's okay to say like, hey, have you ever thought about this? Or what are you using it for? Well, if you're using it for this, then I recommend it. I hope this helps. Thanks for asking. Again, there's technical, being a technical support when it comes to your resources is really important. If you've made promises that they could reach the resources, let's say like with Dropbox, and that they're struggling with downloading from Dropbox, you have to have a canned response on how to get those resources. Oh, look, here's another question from a digital resource. That's because I get a lot of them. I'm going to show you how to save time in responding to these. You're going to love this. Okay. What can you do? Well, you can write a blog post to answer your Q&A. A compiled Q&A is a great way to communicate with buyers. It saves time and energy, relieves the stress of the Q&A. And it also helps you get your thoughts organized. And the little light bulb now should be moving above your head because this should be an aha moment. Have you ever thought about doing something like this? It's not hard to do, and I'm going to show you how to do it. You're going to copy and paste the most common questions you receive in your store pertaining to a particular type of product or product line. You're going to paste them into Microsoft Word, a text file, or a Google Doc. This doesn't have to be all completed in one sitting. You could do it over a couple of days. You could actually write your own if you feel like you want to be more general, or if there's a question that you can anticipate is going to come up. A lot of these questions are like, how do I? Does it work with? People want to know if things are compatible with something. So you're going to go through your store. You're going to copy and paste Q&As that have to do with a product line or product. So this is how it should look. Okay. We have, in this example, I went through and I copied a Q&A that had to do with digital resources. I put it into a text file, and this is where I'm going to clean it up. Okay, so here we go. We're cleaning it up. We're making some edits. You can make it into a more formal language. Like you see how I respond, like, well, you know, the word yeah, maybe you don't want to put that in the blog post. Okay, so then here is the blog post in Blogger. And you can see that I've compiled many questions from my TPT store over a time period, and I edited my responses. And to date, this is one of my most successful blog posts on my blog. Think about it. People are typing in questions in Pinterest, or they'll type in some sort of part of being digital in the classroom, and my blog post will come up as one of the resources to check out, one of the blog posts to check out. Now, this blog post is heavily branded. I give the reader a ton of options, many different links to click on for more information, for resources that they may want to check out. I even give them a link, you'll see there in the bottom paragraph, to check out my newsletter. And here is the final product of the blog post. You'll see here what it looks like on my blog. Oh wow, look at all these before and after pictures. Really a great strategy. Like I said, pictures are awesome. All these questions people have, they're great questions too, by the way. And then my responses along with pictures. So that was really easy. Don't be overwhelmed by that. After the video, if you want, you can ask questions in regard to that, some tips on what you can do to make that easy also. Okay, so now your response on Pinterest. Oh, I love Pinterest. Oh, and if you don't love Pinterest, it's time to start loving it. You're going to put your response, your Q&A blog post on Pinterest. Ah, and there it is. Okay, so we have a ton of people that want to read it. The key questions and answers in going digital in your own classroom, So you're going to put your response to all your questions in a blog post, and most importantly, you're going to put the blog post pin on Pinterest for people to find it. Your blog content for value. Okay, so a lot of us struggle with bloggers, writer's block, blogger block, not wanting to write. Writing seems tedious. Yes, it does. And I'm an English teacher, and believe me, the struggle is real. There's a lot of times I don't want to sit and write a blog post. So I think a lot of my problem is I don't know what to write. I just don't. And I'm sure I'm not the only one out there that feels this way. So what can you write about that can add value to your brand? And where can you get these ideas? Where can you get the ideas? Okay, so Pinterest, it's awesome for you for selling. But Pinterest is awesome for you to use for research. Now, we're not talking about the type of research where you're going to go on there and look for things to copy. That is not what we're talking about. Pinterest is a great place to go to see if things are, one, oversaturated in a certain area. You want to maybe type in your idea into Pinterest to see if there is anything out there. And if there is, how can you make it different? How could you make it better? What can you bring to the idea or to the topic that's not out there yet? So raise your hand if you know what an infographic is. Okay, now, I love infographics. They are a little long, so sometimes you have to scroll through them. And once in a while, I get uneasy because they're hard to read because they appear small. Do you ever notice that? Like the text is really, really tiny. And my belief is they want you to click on it, to go to the website to view it better. I've tried really hard sometimes to like zoom in on them, but you can't really zoom in on Pinterest. So what is an infographic before we continue? It's a visual image such as a chart or a diagram to represent information or data. A good infographic is worth 1,000 words. So true, by the way, because the infographic isn't loaded with complete sentences, paragraphs. Absolutely not. There's single words, there's symbols, there's arrows, sometimes there's like a road map. They're awesome to look at. Well, these infographics are going to be your best friend after this webinar because they are loaded with topics for you to write blog posts on. So, I like the one in the middle. Technology in the classroom. Wow, look at this. And I like that. I like the graphics too. So that's what's catching my eye right now. So, and I like to write about technology in the classroom. So let's take a look at that one. Okay, so let's take a closer look. You got a lot going on here. Students believe more than ever in multitasking. Do I want to write about that? I don't know. We got the use of school emails. The students are only checking email an average of 6 minutes a day. Okay, but you know what I just thought of in my head? What about staff? As a teacher in a school system, we get tons of emails, lots of emails, and sometimes they can be overwhelming. Maybe a blog post on how to manage school emails would be kind of interesting. And I think useful, because one, what's the problem? School emails might take someone a lot of time during the day to look at. 2, you're going to offer a solution on how to save time. Maybe 3, you have organization tips. Oh my God, there's a lot going on here. And could be a really cool blog post. But what's really catching my eye is the technology incorporated into the classroom part. We have virtual worlds, we have video games. Okay, I don't want to write about video games. Online simulations. That means I have to do some research on that. Oh wait, blogging and forums. Forums! When I taught my senior seminar course, I had a discussion forum. That looks really, really interesting to write about. Okay, so I have my idea. Okay, so that's where I'm going to focus on. Okay, I really like this topic. So technology incorporated in the classroom. And I think I want to do something on blogging and forums. Okay, so I also have to mention this. It's important to click on the infographic to see where it goes to, because if there is a blog post that supports the infographic, maybe you want to stay away from that. Like I said, this is for original ideas, original content. You don't want to write a blog post that's similar to somebody else's. That's not at all ethical or what we're talking about. Okay, so this particular infographic did click through to an outline of what was included in the infographic, but it didn't go any further than that. So I'm using it for inspiration. So the blogging and the forum. Okay, so check it out. So I actually have a blog post that I wrote based off this idea. So why your students need online discussion boards and how to create one. Look at this. This is great. So when I taught my senior seminar, I had them do a discussion board. So this blog post was awesome to write. Within the blog post, I gave the steps on how to set up their own, why you need a discussion board, discussion forum. Okay, so there's the pin for it, why your students need online discussion boards and how easy it is to create one. Okay, so how did this content add value to my brand? Because you could write blog posts that are You could write a never-ending collection of blog posts just based on the strategy I just shared with you. But how are you going to connect it back to your brand? Okay, so I'm going to show you how I did it. In the blog post, I linked to this resource, Bell Ringer's Thematic Journal Writing Recall Observe for an Entire Year. So within this resource, there are enough writing prompts for an entire school year that are opinion-based, that are reflective. They have to do with, it's like a thematic writing strategy. They are perfect writing prompts for a discussion board, especially if you're teaching literature. Because don't forget, my blog is, I do attract a lot of English teachers that come to my blog. So this type of resource would support a teacher that wanted to do a discussion board. They could use the writing prompts from this resource. And I talk about it in the blog post. So I tied it together. So I created a want. They want the discussion board. But let's say they're like, oh my God, I don't want to set up my writing prompts every day. Oh, where can I get them? And then I gave them the solution. Well, thank you so much for joining me for this webinar. I have presented to you many good ideas, and I hope you use them in your own branding. Stay tuned for more from me. I'm going to come back with some information on your newsletter and how to get things going for that. Thank you. I'm Danielle Knight. I'm honored to have you during this, have you join me during this webinar. Have a great night. Thank you.